Please welcome George Gallate, Global Chair, Euro RSCG.
Hi, I'm actually the Global Chairman of Havas Worldwide Digital. We've changed our name. I've been in the company a very long time, 28 years. Started in digital in 95 and love what we do. But I'd like to introduce the two guests. David Berkowitz is the Vice President of Emerging Media at 360i. His Twitter handle is @dberkowitz. I think the best way to introduce David is to say he is the 1% that actually publishes. An incredible background in writing. He tweets a lot, and he's got a great blog called The Marketer's Studio. Our next guest is Simon Bond. Simon, I've had the privilege of knowing for a very long time. Actually, Simon and I met first in Dubai or maybe Asia. Simon is the CMO of BBDO and Proximity. He's responsible for driving innovation in digital, and he's worked with them all over the world. A very interesting perspective, and heavily engaged in marketing for their clients. What we'd like to do, we're talking about how social changes our agencies, and we're all from large agencies. We'll just start with a brief thought or two about how you think the biggest changes are. If you'd like to start, David.
Sure. Well, I think that there are a few big changes coming. One is that we see the interaction with TV being a big focus. Twitter's really trying to ramp up what they're doing in the TV space. Right now, it's so disorganized. I think that this is just something that's really ripe for disruption, especially after talking about that last discussion we just saw. And when we see this in other areas of traditional media too, like terrestrial radio being so much bigger, for instance, than Pandora and Spotify and everything else going on there. And trying to get a sense of what's going to be happening as we see that people are, radio can drive passion like just about nothing else, whether it's that perfect song coming on the radio or how people want to talk back to talk radio. So I think we're going to look for those points of interaction. And in general, you see this just massive opportunity with mobile social media. I mean, Facebook, they just announced 600 million mobile users. Business Insider calculating they're adding 25,000 mobile users an hour. Twitter also heavily mobile. You see Instagram and video relying on these basic text-only hashtags to do marketing programs. I mean, Foursquare, they don't even really want advertisers in particular right now. Pinterest is nominally mobile right now, even though I think that's where it becomes a far more interesting platform. And so all of this is something that I think these are going to be big changes that part of it is marketers need to adapt, but part of it is the technologies themselves need to adapt to service the brands that want to take part.
Yeah, we've seen obviously a lot of change. You mentioned many of the big trends across digital, across mobile. But at our offices across all the 287 offices around the globe, one thing has actually stayed constant. And that is the need to create the world's most compelling commercial content. It's just the canvas upon which we create that content has obviously changed and augmented. We've obviously moved from monologue to having conversations with our customers. So for us, it's very much about understanding the new canvas that digital, social, gaming presents to us, and then how you can present this content in new and engaging ways to help change consumer behavior. And I think that will never change from now until 10 years' time. So I think it's always about creating that content and how that can change customer behavior.
David, your agency was born digital, as I understand it.
That's
and
right.
From a search background. So a different approach than Simon's agency, which has been around for over 100 years and always done great content. So how do you see the future of where we're going with digital?
Well, with digital, I mean, it's funny because for us, we learned social because we saw that search was a big change in consumer behavior early on when we were founded in '98. So about 100 years after you guys were. So.
Almost, yeah.
So more or less, and then saw social as another big part of that and something that we ramped up in relatively early on, and so. So all this now is being a digital agency, so much of it is looking at marketing in a digital world, and so rather than just being a digital marketing agency.
Yeah, I mean that's the terminology we've been using. We're trying to advise our clients. It's no longer about digital marketing. It's about advertising, promoting content in a digital world, and that means about moving your content from being sort of periodic to being persistent and always on. It's no longer about just developing digital content for websites or for mobile sites. It's about creating content in an ecosystem, how that's all interconnected. It's no longer about just paid media, it's about paid, owned, and earned media. So it's a completely different framework and mindset. And we have over 17,000 employees around the world, and it's not about having that social and that digital guy that you wheel in for that meeting. It's about making sure that everyone in your organization has been educated and is up to speed on the opportunities that social and digital present to us.
What do you do when clients say, but social is free? From an agency perspective, how do you monetize what you do?
Well, I mean, from day one, we've had to show the value of it. And so early on, I mean, you talk about 2006, we had to show how it influenced search results. And so now it's actually a much different kind of value and how it's really hitting the overarching goals of the brands we work with. And so it's gotten a hell of a lot more sophisticated, and that's great. And our clients are constantly holding our feet to the fire, and we're constantly trying to push them further to really find meaningful ways to measure and manage this.
And so if that's an old favorite, we'll swap the questions around. If that's an old favorite that social is free, there's also one that's out there a lot, which social spells the end of TV. Mm-hmm. Your agency is so well known for the work it does. What do you see the future of?
David Lubar is our chairman and of our office across North America, and a lauded sort of creative. Is using this sort of terminology that it's the golden age of TV. TV has never been more compelling. The content that is out there has never been more engaging. And the numbers actually show that. There was a research study that was just done by Turner which said that in 2008 the average TV viewing per week was 32 hours. Now it's at 34.5. And so TV viewing has never been higher. The content that's being created on TV has never been better. And what's fantastic is that the content now can be talked about beyond just that monologue that you might have in your living room or your dining room. So it's about that content is now being talked about, and just in June of this year, there were 81 million different conversations happening in the social sphere about the content that's out there across TV. So there's now this interaction and engagement that's happening between the content that's being created on TV, then obviously in the social space. So for us, it's about how those two worlds are interconnected and making sure you're creating that content that gets that sort of mass audience, but then has an element of engagement that drives them into a social platform. So that 30-second or 60-second TV spot then has a larger life beyond just the 30 seconds or 60 seconds and pushing it into a social world.
Where do you see the role of data in everything that we're doing? TV is great. But how does data link what we're trying to achieve for our clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's like until South by Southwest this year, barely anyone was talking about big data, and then all of a sudden everyone was. And so, and it's really important because what's very interesting now is with the rise of social and the rise of mobile and all that location-based data, that's what's contributing in a big way to this big data. And so it's being able to harness that. Now, what the big challenge is that there's so much more data than anyone knows what to do with. And the tools have all gotten to a place where it's a pretty high benchmark, especially compared to what there was a couple of years ago. And so, and more or less anyone can have access to them. So it's what are the stories you tell, what are the insights you derive, and then how do you create meaning from data? That's going to be the big challenge for this decade and probably many others.
Would it be possible to put slide 4 up to the backstage? Can we? Okay. This is something which I thought would be interesting. There are 1 billion broadband mobile connections and only 500 million PC-based broadband connections. This has changed everything, and maybe 2012 is the year of mobile. What do you think?
Well, it's one of the big ones, and so it's like, was it the year that there were 1 trillion text messages sent for the first time, or whatever it is? But yeah, I mean, now it's gotten to the point where what I like is that any conversation we have with a brand has mobile that's part of it, and it's not like, okay, it's just this little add-on. Often it's underfunded, often it's not used to the point that it matches up with where consumer behavior is, but at least it's part of the conversation, part of the mind share, and it'll catch up to the wallet in time.
You guys have done an incredible study with AOL. Can you?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that we discovered that there are these billions of people utilizing mobile, but of the billions of dollars that are spent in the marketing world, only 1% of media dollars is actually invested into mobile, there's a huge discrepancy there. So we wanted to do a research study to understand why that might be happening, and we did a research study that we presented last week at Adweek with AOL. And what we discovered is that the conventions of mobile, which is all about on-the-go and utility-based content, is actually not where people are actually spending their time. What we discovered is that mobile is not actually always mobile, and that 70% of usage is actually at home. And it's at home, forget about, obviously voice and obviously people utilizing their email. And it became interesting, it was all around the moment of me time. Consumers are looking to engage, not with the tablet, it was all around just your phone, is around engaging with that content, engaging with the content on their mobile phone when it comes to that sort of relaxation moment and about being entertained. So I think there's a great opportunity for marketeers to rethink about their mobile strategies and around developing that kind of content for the me time, looking for that entertainment, looking for that engagement.
Could we go to slide 2? This one is one that we do a lot of thinking about at Havas, and it's the 3 paradigms of engagement. There's the C paradigm, which is what we pay to put out there and what consumers see through packaging or whatever. There's the search paradigm, which is what I'm looking for now, what's important to me now. And there's the share paradigm or the social paradigm, people I know like this, or people like me through collaborative filtering are looking at this. And so these 3 things together, we believe, are changing consumer behavior, particularly at the intersection of search and social. Now, these work to digital experience, customer intent is found out, and then an outcome. David, we've spoken a little bit about the intersection of search and social. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it comes up and increasingly in meaningful ways. I mean, we just did a program called Bacon Barter for Oscar Mayer. A guy goes cross country with no wallet, just bartering bacon for various things, places to stay, things like that. And so when we were talking with Oscar Mayer, we were saying, there are more searches for bacon than Angelina Jolie. And so it was search that helped fuel what we were proposing there, and a lot of the value of it in turn comes back from search, but it's a socially driven program at that moment. So the two definitely play off each other pretty closely.
You guys at BBDO Proximity produce some incredible content. How do you avoid the situation of that vanity content where the client comes up and says, we want 1 million likes or whatever? How do you handle clients?
Happens all the time.
And how do you handle that?
We always try to bake it into what is your actual strategy. What is the idea that we're going to be obviously pushing out there into the marketplace, and then how does the idea then tie back to a social enabled idea and platform that obviously drives engagement. So there's always understanding what the metrics are up front, and then trying to sort of develop the right content, the right strategies along the way to meet those metrics. But unfortunately, it's always the way with many of our clients. They come, I saw that great thing from whichever client, I want one of those. I saw this great.
Do you have any roller babies?
Yeah, give me that. Yeah. So
we spoke about that last year.
Yeah. So we try to make sure that we're always educating our clients. So we've invested in something called the Digital Lab, which is basically an innovation education program that sits at the core and the fabric of BBDO. And we try to take that to our clients so that we can avoid some of these kind of questions.
So structurally, your agency is much newer. Still a long track record, but born of the digital age, correct?
Sure.
How are you actually structured?
We're structured where we've got a lot of different components, whether it's digital and media, creative and technology, all is part of it. A big analytics group supporting it, brand strategy and emerging media team, a big piece of it. So we have social is definitely woven through what everyone is doing, but we also have a lot of expertise in-house, whether it's for influencer marketing or community and content management. But our structure is also, what's really important is that it's constantly evolving. We recently just created this whole content studio because of the need for so much content driving what's happening in community.
Could you go to slide number 3, please? This keeps us up at night, and this is, a lot of people talk about content, and marketers spend a ton of time on crafted content, and then they go, oh my God, we actually need user-generated content or social content. But the rich spot, I believe, is the curated content that happens in between. The content that a brand may have created or a user may have created, but a brand puts to purpose of marketing or customer service or investor relations. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there are now a lot of new ways to curate that content, and I think this is as far as brands having that voice, you see what they can do on with things like Tumblr and Pinterest, and Facebook is starting to follow the lead of these other platforms. It's trying to find what that great earned media that's out there, what consumers are creating, and then harness that, and then motivate consumers even more, because brands do have millions of followers, and it gives people even more social currency when the brand pays attention.
And this is the perfect finish to both of you. We have less than a minute, less than 30 seconds. How do you think consumer behavior has changed given social? Who wants to go first?
Engagement. They can they can truly get engaged with the conversation, and they want to. They always have done, and now they have a voice, and it can be shared with millions of people.
David?
Yeah, absolutely. And now it's this anytime access to it, and anytime access to what they're thinking and what they want to say and how they want to interact with brands. It is really on their terms.
And you guys have left me 20 seconds. I think it's an incredible time in our industry. I think it's a golden opportunity, and I think that with the emergence of platforms and technology and data tied with creativity, we are in the golden age. Guys, thank you very much. Pivot, thank you very much, and back to the program.